I was on a hike in the woods and I was having trouble walking uphill. And that had never happened to me before. I was out of breath and it was hard for me to carry a camera over my back, a tripod over my shoulder. I knew there was something wrong. I knew it was going to come, but I didn't know when.
That's my favorite one. That's my favorite one.
My mother, Dorila, is just never down.
Mother's always been a healthy person.
I said, Lord, help me, please. Help me. I need to get up. I couldn't even lift my head.
Then when I knew something was wrong,
I don't have no energy.
And I come back, and my mother's hanging over the bed, and I thought she had died.
The red flag was when my white blood count was elevated. My doctor ordered a bone marrow biopsy on me, which goes into the bone, and they pull out the marrow of the bone, and that's when they found my AML, acute myeloid leukemia. When you say the word leukemia, it's a scary word.
I was tired, but I related it all to working too much, and I thought, oh, a couple good nights sleep, I'll be back on my feet, and I'll feel fine.
Mom's never been sick. Mom's always healthy.
She was getting her blood work done for hip surgery, and she'd just been there that day. And I got home, and the hospital called, and there's something seriously wrong with her based on her pre-ops.
Older in AML is considered 60 and above. Their leukemia behaves more aggressively than patients who are younger, and we still don't quite fully understand why that is. The majority of those patients are not candidates for intensive treatment or for allogeneic transplant, which are really the best chance of cure. And so from time of diagnosis, typically most patients pass away within a year of diagnosis.
So AML diagnosis means if this cancer were not to be treated, the patient's average life expectancy is maybe 8 to 10 weeks. That's aggressive. And that's a statistic that is very, very scary for both us and our patients.
Just sort of felt like a death sentence was just given to her for this healthy woman her entire life. And all of a sudden it was, get your affairs in order.
We were confronted by an alarming statistic. Acute myeloid leukemia, AML, had suddenly become the most frequently diagnosed leukemia in older adults. We had to do something about AML.
I'm 87 years old. I'm famous for a lot of things. I love it, and I'm not lying.
I will be 78 next week. I had no idea that it would be a cancer leukemia problem.
I'm 63 years old. I didn't know anything about AML. I have never heard of it. I can't believe I have this. Why me? I was totally shocked. It took me for a loop. I was devastated.
I'm 75 and I want to live.
By the time she made it to me, she was like 80 pounds, barely eating, bedbound, and very sick, and needed a lot of medical interventions, nutrition, transfusions, infection treatment. And it was very clear she had an aggressive leukemia. We admitted her and did a bone marrow biopsy to give her the definitive diagnosis of acute myeloid leukemia.
AML is a disease that comes from the bone marrow cells. The bone marrow cells make our blood. They make the part of our body that fights infection. People will have infections, they'll have fatigue, and you really can't live without the bone marrow for a long time.
AML, it's a really progressive and fast-growing disease. So historically, AML is always treated the same day that it was diagnosed. patients would be treated with a chemotherapy regimen, and they had no time to talk to their families, nothing. They would just be in the hospital, diagnosed, and rushed off to treatment. And many of them don't even leave the hospital for 6 months to a year because of infections, needing blood transfusions, and so forth.
Acute means very aggressive and quick on onset. So normally the bone marrow is supposed to make white blood cells to fight off infection, red blood cells to carry oxygen, and platelets to keep you from bleeding. And once leukemia starts, it infiltrates the bone marrow, and it takes away the bone marrow's ability to make these normal cells.
For the majority of my career, it's been really frustrating to see that there are few therapeutic options for AML patients. The drugs largely have been the same. The outcomes are not generally acceptable.
The currently available treatments were 30-year-old toxic chemotherapies that most older patients wouldn't even have been able to tolerate. So there was a wake-up call for us.
Part of the reason there hasn't been success until very recently is that AML, in fact, is 15 diseases or more, and it was being treated the same way.
We're just beginning to see some of these new targeted therapies show some pretty rapid, dramatic, but transient responses. But those rapid and transient responses gave you a glimmer of hope that maybe you could do some things differently. Maybe if you combine treatments in the right way, you could get more people to remission, more people longer and durable remissions. And it was clear to any number of us in the field that it was time to do something different.
In December of 2014, we went to the American Society of Hematology annual meeting where we met with our key opinion leaders again. That included John, Brian, and Ross. And at that meeting, we did challenge everyone there, like, what would you do? What could we do to move the field forward? And how could we design a trial that looked at newly diagnosed AML patients and looked at these targeted therapies at the same time?
Dr. Bird, world-renowned for having developed new therapies for chronic lymphocytic leukemia. Dr. Drucker, world-renowned and probably best known for leading the study that led to the first ever gene-targeted therapy to treat cancer. And Dr. Levine, a world's expert in acute myeloid leukemia, and in particular, the genetic underpinning of the disease. This is exactly the brain trust that we needed.
We have to think about how the cancer is evolving over time and think about how to cut it off before it can evolve to even more dangerous leukemia. So thinking about an analogy of a blackout on a freeway, and we need to recognize that these leukemias evolve, they evolve quickly, and we need to cut them off as quickly as we possibly can.
We came up with the idea of doing a clinical trial with a different strategy than had never been done before, and that led to what we're doing now today. But what's different here is that we're not looking to match one target to one patient, but we're looking for all the possible targets in every patient in real time so that each patient has a chance to be screened for all the possible different targeted therapies that might be useful for their leukemia.
The idea of this master trial came out of that, and that's when John, Brian, and Ross sort of went together over that Christmas holiday and came up with the concept and presented it to me and the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. I asked a ton of questions. The concept of having targeted therapies for newly diagnosed patients sort of came up. We then went and had a conversation with the FDA, and it was, why hadn't therapies been approved in AML in 40 years?
There are a finite number of these what are called molecular abnormalities. These are the things that distinguish a leukemia cell from a normal cell. But they can combine in many different combinations so that each individual might have a slight variation. But the idea is if you had ways to target each of those abnormalities, you could take the slate of abnormalities that are present in a patient, the list of drugs, and know how to combine them to optimize therapy.
The biggest challenge that we had in creating the Beat AML clinical trial was the fact that it had never been done before. A nonprofit being the sponsor of a clinical trial with this kind of scale and scope. I remember a signature moment at a meeting where we assembled all the players. I could hear in the background there was lots of questions and skeptics. 2 members of the Food and Drug Administration then stood up and said, the FDA believes in this trial. That was the trigger point.
The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society coordinated a vast and never-before-convened network of collaborators for the Beat AML Master Clinical Trial, including the pharmaceutical industry, academic institutions, regulators, medical field industry, bringing new IT technology and new drug development technology together, all focused on identifying new targeted therapies for AML.
The reason that we call this trial a master trial is that it has an overall structure that allows different patients, depending on the genetic features of their leukemia, to actually get enrolled to different therapeutic trial arms with different drugs. And it lets us, in a single framework, match each patient with a specific trial arm that's best suited to them.
Advances in genomic testing were now making it feasible to speed up comprehensive genetic analysis of AML mutation. Typically, treatment starts immediately, but it was deemed that it was okay and safe to wait up to 7 days to determine what the genomic targets of the disease were for the patient to receive personalized treatment. The first innovative part of the Beat AML Master Clinical Trial design was the ability to get genomic results within 7 days.
DNA controls everything within the cell. It causes it to grow, to proliferate, to spread. So we provide the genomic sequencing data for these patients that identifies the genomic mutations that help classify patients with AML into different risk groups.
Dr. John Bird is the person who makes the decisions in regards to the treatment algorithm.
It's not pressure. The study is the most important thing that I do.
Hey, hi, Dr. Mims.
Hi, good morning. How are you? Good. See, the whole family's here.
Yes. Yeah.
So things have been going well with the treatment. Yes.
We assign them to either a targeted therapy that's smart for their disease or a targeted therapy that's smart for their disease with a standard therapy. Everybody gets a new therapy.
Giving patients 7 days to digest that diagnosis, and we view that as a really good thing.
It was kind of confusing at first because we were thinking that, hey, we're going to use this trial to make her a crash dummy. Because the way they explained it is like, we're gonna use this extra drug to kind of boost the pace of your chemo working. Okay, let's do a clinical trial instead of standard chemo. Because with the clinical trial, it's an inpatient, outpatient procedure. You come in, you go. And the standard chemo is you're in the hospital for 30 days.
My first day of treatment was December the 23rd. That was on a Wednesday. This is my record book. I have to take my medication the same time, and it's 12:15 p.m. of 120 milligrams. So it is current up until the last day, which was today, July the 16th.
I thought it was something, sure, they can fix it. I'll be back on my feet and keep going. So it was a shock, but you learn this is it, face it.
So it became clear
there was only one option, and that was the clinical trial. Was the best bet.
They needed to start chemotherapy in combination, a targeted therapy, or an immunotherapy agent. Then after starting treatment, about 2 weeks later, she became sick from concerns of infection, was not eating or drinking well, not able to really move around well because she had lost weight and muscle strength and ended up being admitted to the hospital. She also had a complication from the chemotherapy, and so she was hospitalized for, I believe, about 2 months. At the time, my husband and I were trying to get pregnant, and she knew that. And after about probably 5 minutes of crying, she pulled away from me and she said, "I'm going to fight this. I'm going to try this once because I want to be there to rock your baby." And then it was like, no more tears. Your blood counts today look great as usual.
We were going in for the once a week, every other day chemotherapy, as most laymen would know it, and it was chemo.
One day it hit like a ton of bricks. She called me. She's like, "I couldn't get out of bed today."
I don't remember a lot of the stomach infections. I remember not having control of my bladder or bowel. A lot of bags hooked to me.
I think Mom was feeling so bad, she asked me to just let me die. But I said, we can't give up yet.
Mom progressively got worse and worse and worse. You held her hand, she would respond to that.
It wasn't the cancer that was the problem. It was all the side effects. The pills working, they decided, look, we're not doing chemotherapy anymore. I'm like, no, we're not, because that's going to kill her. And so they said, we're just going to do the pill. That's it.
Just a few months into the Beat AML Master Trial. And to be honest, I saw her. I saw how tiny she was, how malnourished she was. And in my head, I was thinking, she won't even qualify for a trial. It really was looking hopeless when we first met her.
She didn't want to give me no chemo. I said, "Do whatever you want to do for me, as long as I get well."
She was put on this protocol for this drug to treat the IDH2 mutation that she had. And within about a week, was strong enough to go home. This is one of the first protocols that was open under the Beat AML trial, and this was just the oral targeted therapy. There was no IV chemotherapy or no other combination it was given with. And this is something that had not been done before. So then what happened was probably the most remarkable thing I've ever seen in treating patients with leukemia up to that point. She went home and never came back to the hospital again. She stayed home and she got better and stronger. Her leukemia started to respond. Within about 3 months,
I get it at.
Oh, they look nice.
Looks excellent.
My mother's philosophy is to live life. There's no time to be depressed. There's no time to be sad. It's just a time to live.
Don't try to kill me now.
when we repeated the biopsy, she was in a complete remission. She didn't have any side effects to the drug and just started living her life again.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. I go over there. Don't get them on, son.
Right in there. I'll follow you in for just a minute here.
Hi, Jerry. Nice to see you again.
Okay.
How is everything?
Oh, I feel good.
Always good to see you.
Yeah, and I'm getting close to 100 days, so I'm hoping I can.
That's a big step. Yeah, oh, that's amazing. Well, it's really great to see you again. We'll have to catch up more.
Jerry decided to enroll in the trial, and we found out that he had an IDH mutation, which is one of the recurring mutations in AML. Only happens in about 15% of all patients, but when they do happen, we actually have a drug that seems to work well against those patients. I'd never treated anyone with a new diagnosis of leukemia with just a pill. This was pretty amazing experience. And he did have some of the side effects of the treatment, but overall actually had a really amazing response to this pill, and he managed to make it into a remission with only a pill and nothing else.
It was just taking a pill daily, and that was all I had to do. The doctor told me I needed a transplant to survive.
I think being on the trial actually helped him change his viewpoint of what leukemia treatment was going to be. We identified a donor, and then he continued to feel so well, I think that he realized that actually an attempt at a cure might be possible.
Jerry's spirit and willingness to, try whatever he needed to do has been a big part of it. And, if he's willing to do it, and we'll forge ahead. I mean, we don't know where it's all going to end, but we'll do the best we can to have him survive as long as he can.
He received an allogeneic stem cell transplant, actually had very nice blood counts and was feeling good, out walking a lot and active. This is basically a way of curing leukemia by giving a patient stem cells from somebody else. In effect, what I tell patients is that they're getting an immune system from somebody else, and we're transplanting a new immune system into them. And the new immune system actually has the capability of eradicating all the residual leukemia cells, keeping it under control, and that's how a lot of patients manage to get to cure.
It looks like you might be due for a vaccination today.
I don't know how many vaccinations I'm going to need.
You've got a baby immune system, so it's kind of like thinking starting over from birth.
There's no sign of the leukemia until my last biopsy. Now that I'm feeling better, I can maybe get back to doing a little bit of hiking, and, well, there's some waterfalls I want to take pictures of.
My first treatment, I did well. No sickness, no side effects. So I said, well, hey, maybe this is gonna work for me. I was in treatment about 3 months before my AML went into remission. I will be on this treatment until I have my bone marrow transplant. They want to do a bone marrow transplant because they don't want it to come back.
I lost my mom to a horrendous cancer of unknown primary in 1996. And say the 3 months she was on chemotherapy were the worst 3 months of her life. And so I will consider my battle with cancer done when everybody that doesn't need to receive chemotherapy doesn't have to. We've shown that 50% of people can take one of the oral medicines, not chemotherapy, a pill. They can take a pill and go into remission without any chemotherapy. And then a subset of them can go on to transplant and potentially be cured. The FDA has been a phenomenal partner with this trial in terms of approving and making drugs available to patients.
There's sort of a revolution to try and find ways to get these therapies to patients.
This is full mitigation.
Because of COVID-19 and all the uncertainties, we thought, since this is such a vulnerable population, we didn't think it was fair for people to have to come back and forth to a treatment site frequently for treatment monitoring. We were already doing an awful lot of remote monitoring, and we're able to just switch gears a little bit and make sure that everybody continued to get monitored if they were already enrolled on a treatment arm.
I've been confined to the house, basically. I've had one trip to a house take just for a checkup. But other than that, I've been sitting tight.
Well, of course, I was worried about my own health and everyone's health, but we don't go out and mingle with people, or we do all our shopping from home, sometimes we do our door. And unfortunately for Gail, she has to take care of all that when it comes in to clean it, wipe it off. And then I sit back and read my book or whatever I'm going to do, which isn't fair, but that's the way it's been.
So during the pandemic, Dorila gets COVID, and it is, to me, and when I hear this, it's catastrophic because patients that have a higher mortality are ones that are elderly, ones that have acute leukemia. and she actually does pretty well. I think some of it is the fact that underneath it all, she was healthy, she was in remission, so she was able to come through this with no long-term effects.
We were almost COVID ready. After 6 months, we began to enroll again, and we're right back on track.
Then Beat AML, we started with 3 studies, and then we've expanded. There are 15 types of AML. We have a study for all 15 types of AML in this trial.
If we can shave 6 months, a year, 2 years off of the drug development time from clinical trials to FDA approval, that's part of the reason we've been so successful at getting drug companies to put their drugs into this trial.
We're in a renaissance in AML, and this is where LLS is going to play a crucial role. What's so special about the Master Trial is that it gives a startup, small biotech company like us access to a far larger institution base and customer universe than we would be able to get on our own. In a single trial, that we are getting companies that are ostensibly competitors. And so LLS acts as this objective third party in the unique position of being able to bring competitors and collaborators together and to be able to advance the science and deliver hopefully promising new treatments for patients.
What we've learned is that the patients who have these targeted therapies and have direct personalized medicine seem to do better than patients who might get the old standard of care.
This is my ugly sweater. We had a contest and I win. I got $10 for it.
To this day, she continues to take a pill a day. She comes in to see me every 3 months, and she comes in full of energy and life and tells me about her travels and her volunteer work. And this pill that she's taking for her acute myeloid leukemia is akin to a vitamin at this point.
So that double
6, 11, or 12.
Okay. The outcome was fantastic. And just a year ago today, it looked like we would be making funeral arrangements. It's pretty remarkable.
She's been in a full or complete remission now for over a year. She's been doing fantastic, has not needed transfusions. And so she's done, very well for someone who we consider older. She takes 1 pill a day. And so the plan is that she'll stay on it indefinitely as long as it's working for her. And so as this is uncharted territory, we'll have to see.
We're getting snow this weekend.
So are we Friday night for football Friday night?
If you can just take a pill a day to make the cancer go away, I call it a miracle. And a miracle happened.
She was in the labor and delivery with me and helping me count and helping me push. And I didn't really think I'd have my mom here to do that. The best thing a daughter could have.
I have Danny time 2 or 3 times a week. He comes about 1 o'clock, comes home at 5. I was just grateful that I'm back on my feet, and hopefully he'll remember this and remember his grandma.
Yes, they can be very messy, especially with the dirt, but I love flowers.
My activities I enjoy doing the most is gardening, going out of town, vacation, at the beach. I love doing that with my kids and grandkids.
We talk on the phone together every day. We laugh together. We cook dinner together. We do everything together. She's my heart.
When they called me with the results of my bone marrow biopsy, they didn't see any trace or sign of AML. That was one of the happiest days of my life. And my daughter, we both cried for a long time. The doctors and the nurses, they were so amazed. And they are still amazed how well I'm doing. My daughter and I are a perfect match for the bone marrow transplant.
They wanted to do a bone marrow transplant to kind of keep the cancer away for good. So I feel nervous, but I also feel joy. Now I'm able to give her something back to help her enjoy the rest of her life.
You can walk around with your pants down.
Mom, I love you, and I'm here for you. I'm gonna take care of you. You got this. We got this.
You know, Danny arrived, and now he has a sister, Kaylee Ann, who is almost 7 months. I have a great-granddaughter, and I am expecting another great. It's amazing to have her here with me. You know, most days I feel like I still need to pinch myself every day.
He's very at peace with whatever happens. He knows he's had a good life. He's not worrying about what might happen.
That trial just did a job. I didn't think he would do it so quickly, but the transplant possible.
We're giving it the credit.
Yeah. Last several biopsies that I've had show no leukemia.
I like those circles.
I'm still out walking, not as much as I used to, but walking every day. Feeling good and still alive.
We've enrolled over 1,300 patients in the trial, which in AML, when you think about it from a small disease that only has 20,000 newly diagnosed patients a year, that's kind of extraordinary. We've enrolled faster in this trial than many other trials in AML. It speaks to how patient-friendly the trial is. Patients want to participate in the trial, but more importantly, investigators want to present the option to their patients.
During my trial, I have not missed one day of work. If I do not go into the office, I'll work from home.
I feel that we've moved the dial a little bit. You know, there are probably 15 or 20% of elderly AML patients that are not going to have to receive chemotherapy, but we still have a good ways to go, to making targeted therapy available for all of our patients with leukemia.
Until we can say that, for every patient, there's the possibility, in fact, the probability that the treatment matched best to your leukemia has a high likelihood of working. And we can't stop until we can do that.
My mom got a lot more living to do. She's young. She's healthy. She comes, she pops up at my house.
The goal for the treatment of AML and for many other cancers is what we're calling chemotherapy-free regimens, where it can all be these targeted therapies that shut down the drivers of each individual's leukemia, and that could be individualized. But to me, that is the future.
Oh, my mom has been on medication for 5 years for treatment, and the turnout is great, 100% great.
I love to help. To go help people and to make them happy, everybody, and whatever the Lord wants for me to do.
There's been a remarkable spin-off benefit from the Beat AML clinical trial to create a similar clinical trial, not for older adults, but for children.
So this platform that we created is now like this testing ground where companies just want to test their compounds in it, and they want to look at new combinations. You could take the concept of what we put together with this trial design and apply it to almost any other disease.
We've created the Amazon.com model of clinical trials. Faster, better, cheaper. We've been able to run a progressive clinical trial using a precision medicine model with 11 different drugs under study simultaneously. 9 pharmaceutical companies partnered with us, 17 different clinical sites around the country, with the goal of new treatments for AML, and we've done it at half the cost of a peer industry trial.
I've never seen something like that before.
Collaboration. It works. It really does work.
To those that are working on this leukemia study, I appreciate everything you have put into it because it has helped me greatly. Your devotion to it, I appreciate everything you have done. I believe in God, and God's on my side. He wants me to be here. I have reasons to be here. I have children, I have grandchildren. I'm not ready yet. Lots to live for.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mima. Happy birthday to you. Stop my hair. Cheers. Cheers.
Hey, my granny babies. Let's go inside. Let's start with the red pieces. I don't have any regrets that I decided to do this clinical trial because it worked on me.
Going on the clinical trial was one of the best things he decided to do, and he wanted to do it not only for himself, but for others who might be wary.
Thank you for making this drug available, because it sure worked for me. I feel lucky that I came through it.
We've seen some dramatic long-term responses. I wish I could tell you that was the norm, but we're certainly seeing some people living 3-4 years at this point because of the treatments they've received.
We had to take some risk, calculated risk. The Beat AML clinical trial is a living, breathing example of innovation, risk-taking, coloring outside the lines.
We may have cured her. Dorila's record in the Beat AML Master Trial is that she's the oldest patient on the Master Trial right now, and she's also the longest trial participant on the clinical trial. And it is completely befitting of her personality to hold those two records.
Doing great, really. I'm surprised I'm the longest patient in that clinical trial.
Wow. This is my mom. I know she's going to get to do all the other things that she wants to do, like go to Peru.
This pill does work, and we want to thank you for giving my mom this
extra life
that she had.
I live happily, eat right, get up, go to bed early, and get up early, you know, accomplish something in life.
Absolutely a game changer. Absolutely a game changer. We've given them quantity of life, and we've given back their quality of life.